my dad had me out there probably around 3 or 4 years old. So that was my first run at it at Sergeant Park. And then from there, it just kept getting better and better. Well, mostly when really minor hockey was Sergeant Park. And then when I turned midget, I went over to Orioles Community Club. Back in those days, they were good because a lot of the parents came, but it was outdoor ice all the time, so they stood on the side, and if it was too cold, they didn't come. So I guess it kind of reacts to what's going on now and what went on then, and then the parents never said a word.
Did you play out of Sergeant Park at first? Was that an organized league? Or?
Yeah, it was. It had all the little community clubs around the area. So I played playground there, and I started in playground when I was 12, and we played at West End Memorials and Orioles and all that stuff. So that year was kind of a dry year. I got the only goal we ever scored during the year and got 25 cents for it, so it was a big deal. I played center. I don't know. I just kind of gravitated that position. I'm not sure if in minor hockey they didn't have a centerman or whatever, but we just had a few guys. We only had maybe 8 or 10 guys. So you pretty well played the position that was open, and that was open, I guess. So I took it upon myself to play it. Yeah, a little bit. I enjoyed them. I know when I got to midget hockey, the younger ages it didn't bother me. But when I got to older hockey and I played a couple of years midget and then the first year juvenile, and I was thinking as I was playing, I was thinking, geez, I wish I was as good and as big as some of these guys, because they can skate and shoot the puck, and they're big guys. They played on the same team as I did, but I don't know, I just admired the way they played. Only about 4 or 5 kids stood out, but I thought liked those kids, and it ended up in the end. I went to junior the next year with the Braves, and one guy came, defenseman, but they never really played at all. And that year I went to, I played with this Langrel and LeBlanc that first year junior, and we won the Memorial Cup with the Winnipeg Braves. Well, there's one coach that the one coach that coached me at Orioles was Dr. Lloyd Freehagen. He was a doctor, and he was just a minor league coach, like he didn't know much about it. And then when I came up to the Braves, Bill Allen was the coach, and just so happened that Bill Allen was, later on years, became my father-in-law. Well, we didn't wear helmets. It was like a lot of times, if you hit a guy, I don't know if he got hurt or you got hurt, because the equipment wasn't really armor like it is now. I think personally myself, equipment is too solid now, and I think that's what's hurting a lot of people. That it doesn't give way, and in the shoulder pads. In the old days, if you hit a guy with your shoulder, you're apt to come out with a bad shoulder more than the other guy. So it kind of helped a little bit, I think, that the equipment wasn't so rock hard. We used to have a rivalry, I guess, with the West End Memorials, and CUAC was always a rivalry because we both had pretty good teams. Like, we had a pretty good team in juvenile, But in those years, you could play 2 years juvenile and 2 years midget, if I recall. But I played 2 years midget and then just the 1 year juvenile, and then went to the Braves in junior. Well, we played out of the. I remember going to games before I played junior in the amphitheater, but I wasn't playing then. But I remember Gary Elkhorn and Len Thornycraft, guys like that played ahead of me. And then, of course, the old Olympic rink with Pat Lyons there. I recall that rink was really, really old. And then we used to play in the arena for years. The Braves, Rangers, Canadians, I think, and even the Monarchs were all situated out of the arena in those days. Yes, it was. Yeah. I signed a C form with Boston through the Braves, and you got $100. It was a big deal in those days, but that was a C form, so that kept you with that team. So I was pretty well owned by Boston.
Any regrets on signing that?
No, the only thing I guess was that there was $100 involved, and that was a lot of money in those days. So never even thought about the team. Like, we were the Braves, and then it was the Warriors were the pro team, and then of course the Bruins were on top of that. But in my second year junior, Lynn Patrick and Milt Schmidt came to Winnipeg to see me play and get my pictures taken with them and everything. I didn't even know who they were, but it was quite a compliment, really, for me. Played with the Winnipeg Braves right for 3 years. Bill Addison was the coach or the general manager. My father-in-law, Bill Allen, was the coach, and Jack Perrin kind of was the owner of the team because he owned the Winnipeg Warriors, so we were under the Warriors. And then a few games I'd play with the Warriors because they'd bring me up, if our season was finished or we got knocked out or something like that. Like in our team, we had like, for instance, Laurie Langrell, Wayne Larkin was the captain, Gary Bergman on defense, Ernie Wakely was the goalie, and they all went to the NHL. Teddy Green, we picked him up on the playoffs, and he played about 3 or 4 rounds of the playoffs with us. So he was the other one that went, and then there was a couple of guys on the range. Oh, Dave Richardson went to Chicago for a while. He was there for a while. So yeah, there was quite a few good hockey players in those days. And if they didn't go to the NHL, they went to Eastern Pro Leagues all around, or even in those days, the Winnipeg Maroons were doing really well. My second year or third year, I think, I went and played with them for the Allen Cup, and we went right to the final. But they had some good hockey players. It was kind of leery, but Bill Allen was a little bit of a rough customer, and he wasn't going to let anything. I mean, you had to play or you didn't play, and he was a good guy, but he knew what he was doing. He had played pro hockey for a few years, and we went to Flin Flon in the first 2 games, and they beat us, so we were down 2-0. And Bill kept telling the guys, "We're not going to lose this. Get your heads up. We're going to win the next 4 games straight, and we'll take them." And sure enough, we did. We beat them, and then we went on to, I think, Port Arthur, and then on to Peterborough Petes. And when we played Peterborough Petes, The funny part of it is one of the guys, the two Barkley brothers were there. And, of course, we had Teddy Green, and then Wayne Connolly was there with Peterborough. And the first game of the playoffs, Teddy Green and one of the Barkley brothers got into a big fight in the middle of the ice. Teddy won the fight, and we won in 5 games. And I played with Wayne Connolly in Boston when I went up there, because he made it there, and so did the Barkley brothers. It was pretty good. They had, for one line, they had Cliff Pennington, Dickie Meisner, and Red Berenson. So they picked those 3 guys up. And we picked up Teddy Green and one other guy, I can't remember who it was, Adamanchuk. And I can't remember if the games were rough or not, but I know we were down 2-0 coming out of Flin Flon. And then we come back to the arena for 2 and back there 1-1. And then that's when we beat them. But we weren't out-muscled for guys that could fight like Teddy Green and Wayne Larkin, Ernie Bradawosky. They were just pretty tough guys, so we weren't worried about getting out-muscled and out fought from that standpoint at all. I don't think he ever lost a fight, and him and Teddy Green would square off at center ice. Honest to God, I didn't think they'd ever end. It was on and on and on. They never quit. They always wanted to get the last punch in. But in those days, too, the referee wasn't going to jump in very quick, because these guys were pretty tough guys, so they didn't want to get their heads blown off either. But they fought all through the year, Larkin and Green, because Green played for the Rangers and Larkin played for us. So they had fought before. So now they were teammates, so it was a tough road for the other team. Well, I know we really played really well, and we weren't expected to beat them. Like they had those Barkley brothers, and I don't think it's Barkley, but and
Plager? Plager?
Plagers, that's right. That's who it is. Yeah, and the Plager brothers and Wayne Connolly, and they had a couple other really good hockey players, and Scotty Bowman was the coach. So I don't think they gave us any chance to win that at all, but we really played well. It just seemed like we gelled there, and they just weren't a match for us for some reason. I don't know why, because we took it in 5 straight.
And Langrel was potting you 2 a game, so.
Pardon?
I said Langrel was potting you 2 a game.
Yeah, that's right. And Al Beatty got a hat trick the last game in Brandon. The last game we played in Brandon, because the circus was at the arena, so he got the hat trick. So the thing was over then.
So, but you would say the Ted Green Plager fight set the tone for them? Or?
I think so. He beat them right off the bat, and that seemed to kind of, put their level down a bit. I think they were shocked. To be honest with you, I never thought about it. I never thought I'd be going anywhere. I wasn't really follow the NHL that much, and I didn't know any of the other teams that are minor pro. So I didn't even think about going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, this thing, Lynn Patrick came and Schmilt Schmidt, and then now Bill Addison's on me to say, hey, they're looking at for you and they're interested in you. They want you to go to Boston's camp. I thought, oh shit! Now I'm going home, away from home. But yeah, the next 2 years later, I went to Boston's camp with Teddy Green and Ken Stephenson, and they sent me to Kingston of the Eastern Pro League. So Steph and I went to went to Kingston in the Eastern Pro League. Teddy was already in Boston, so he stayed there for another few years. But we had a good time in Kingston. We won we got beat out in the final, I think, and I led the scoring for the team in the Eastern Pro League there for the playoffs. So we had a pretty good year there. Yeah, I played with the Warriors at the end of one year in when our year was over in junior, and the Warriors were still playing. I played maybe a month with them. They had Gary Alcorn and Billy Mosienko and all those guys. So they had a really good team. So Eddie Chadwick was a goalkeeper. So it was nice for me. I got a taste of what it was like to play with the pros and that. It was nice.
You obviously held your own.
Yeah. I played pretty good actually. I stayed. I was on a good line, and they kept me up there for the whole playoffs. So yeah, I must have done all right.
So was the light bulb going on then that, hey, I can skate with these guys? And did that help you make your decision to go when Boston called?
Yeah, I think in a little bit. I got so much press in those days playing junior because my first year we won the Memorial Cup, and then the next couple of years I had a couple of real good years. So there was so much stuff going on and so much press. I was thinking, well, maybe something is going to happen. And then before I knew it, they called in the summer, and that was it. I really enjoyed it. I went there in 61, and then I stayed there a month, and then I went to Kingston of the Eastern Pro League for 1 year, and the guy there was Ren Blair. So Ren Blair didn't like the way I played, so he sat me out a few games at the beginning, and he was just a guy that just everybody hated him. So he phoned Lynn Patrick, said, "I don't want this guy. He can't play." So Lynn Patrick said, "Ren, you play him. We're interested in him. We're paying him. Put him on the ice." So as it happened, I played the rest of the year, and then I led the team in the playoffs. So at the end of the year at the banquet, Ren Blair come over to me and give me a big pat in the back, said, "I knew you could do it." I just about nailed him. I was so mad. Yeah, there were some big names there. I remember like Johnny Busick, Murray Oliver, Orland Kurtenbach, Teddy Green, all those guys. Eddie Chadwick was a goalie for a while. Bruce Gamble was a goalie, and yeah, they were really really good guys to play with. And then they just give you a lot of encouragement, and just Johnny McKenzie was there, and they had a lot of really good players. What's his name from out there in Western Manitoba? Dallas Smith. He was there. So there was a 3 or 4 guys from around this area. So it really wasn't an easy transition to go to camp. And then Teddy Green and Ken Stephenson were there. So the first camp was okay. I enjoyed it. I was a little nervous. I know we were in, like we used to go to Ontario all the time. So we trained in Niagara Falls. And then the other thing that helped was Milt Schmidt was a coach. So he was really a good guy. I really liked Milt. He's a great guy, actually. Yeah, he was a cool, calm guy. He was a great guy. I really liked him, and he didn't put anybody down. He always tried to encourage you. When like next year I went to camp, or a year later, Phil Watson was there, and that was just, he's crazy. He's like that Tortorelli guy, I think, in New York. I ended up, my first pro season, I ended up in Kingston. And we went right to the playoffs with Ottawa Hull. And Scotty Bowman was coaching Ottawa Hull, and we went pretty far with them, 6 games. And they beat us out at the end. But I ended up there. I had a good year. I led the team in scoring in the playoffs. So, and then the next year, a quarter away through the year, Boston called me up, and then I went to Boston. And then when I went to Boston, I was there 3 or 4 years, but my second or third year, I broke my arm. I shattered it at the boards, so they had to re-break it and give me a bone graft. So I missed a year. And then after that, I played a few months in that year, second year, third year, I guess. And then the next year, I came back and went to camp again, and they found a spot on my lungs. So I had a TB. They had sent me back to Boston to the doctor because I had a TB infection. So I missed another 3 or 4 months that year. So and then after that, I spent a couple of years in Hershey. It was a good league, actually. It was really good. Like Montreal had some really good players, and so did we. We had Tom McCarthy from Detroit. Bobby Addersley played some real good hockey. Ottawa Hull had Cliff Pennington and guys like that. Like they had some really Ralph Backstrom, I think, played for them, and a bunch of the guys that were going up to Montreal, like Cornway and guys like that. So we had some. There was some good teams in that league, and then we went to Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, and everybody had a smattering of guys that were going to pro or going to the NHL or had played in the NHL. So yeah, it was a good league, and I think it was good grooming for the NHL. You know, I didn't. I just Ken Steff and I became really good friends because he was from the Braves too. But Ren Blair was the coach, and he was just a real. I don't know. Nobody really liked him. You couldn't like him, and he was just a real on your back all the time, and he just. Kept on your back. He was on Steph's back and on my back. I don't know why he didn't like Western guys, maybe, or something. But I look back now, and a few years back, I was thinking to myself, like I wasn't an arrogant guy or brash guy, or thought I was men's gift to hockey at all. I was pretty shy and laid back and everything. And when I think back to those days, I think to myself, how did I ever stick it out? I can't believe I stuck it out, and because we went through hell with him, and yet I just stayed there the whole time and played, and we lived in a little motel in Kingston, Steph and I, and we look back and think, how the hell did we ever do it? But we did it, and it worked out really well. Yeah, I think we were playing Toronto. Yeah, we were playing Toronto, and we got beat 8-1, but I got the goal. So it wasn't too much celebration going on. It was good. To start off with. It was really good. They had Lynn Patrick, general manager. Weston Adams was the owner. Mill Smith was the coach. So it was a real good organization. They had some nice guys, and we didn't get up there in the standings either very very high. Like we were in last place for, I'd say, 2 or 3 years. Then all of a sudden, this guy came from Oshawa, and he was 18 years old, and he was come with pretty high credentials. But once he started playing, you could see why he had the high credentials, because he was just his first game was against Toronto. They had won the Stanley Cup the year before. He's 18 years old, and every time he was on the ice, he's a defenseman. Every time he was on the ice, he dominated the game. So they knew that things were going to turn around, and it was Bobby Orr. Like, we didn't know we had to get permission to play the game, and Billy Heindl was kind of on the way out. So Orr come, and then I give Orr the puck, and then he scored, I guess, on it or shot it, and came around the net. And just as he came around the net, I lost my footing and slammed into his knee. And we went and saw him after. He had his ice on it at the Viscount Gord. And then we got back to Boston. Tommy Johnson was the general manager then. And, oh, man, did we get shit. Him and Orr got shit, too, because he's, most valuable player. He shouldn't be doing that. I mean, myself. Yeah, but still, we were in the bad books for quite a while. But I never thought to ask, and neither did Orr. Orr wasn't very old either, and he played with Billy Heindl in Oshawa, so he wanted to help him out and, help him raise money. I mean, it was a good game till then, but after that it was downhill.
Did you know you were in trouble right away?
No, I never thought about it. I was upset that Orr's knee was hurt, but I never knew how bad it was. I went to see him in the hotel, and he said, it'll be all right. And I said, oh, that's great. But it troubled him for a long time. I think it was the start of his whole problem. Shit. It was an amazing experience because I had heard of all those guys, and then all of a sudden, like, there's Delvecchio, Howe, and Lindsay, and you're thinking, oh shit, what am I doing here? Like you can't. It's hard. And then Bobby Hull was in Chicago, and so it was a great experience. I mean, the guys on our team really helped me. We were in last place for a couple of years there, but we had some good players, but we just couldn't get atop the ladder. But one night after a game, Teddy Green said to me, he said, oh, shit, he said, you go in the corner with that Howe. He said, he's nuts. He said, he's liable to break your legs. I said, Teddy, what about you? Why do you think he's doing it? But he was tough. Howe was unbelievable. And I was sitting went by the dressing room one time, and they were just getting dressed, and I was going to our dressing room. Howe was sitting there like this. He had arms on him like this. And then to make matters worse, a few games later, I go into the Chicago dressing room for stitches, and I'm laying on the table there getting stitched up, and Bobby Hull walks in, and he's combing his hair like this, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, oh, this guy had biceps like this. So it was actually a thrilling experience. I mean, it was rough in those days. Like, guys, you had some dirty players, like Bill Gadsby was not, the guys on defense. Alec Delvecchio was a good player, and Ted Lindsay was dirty as hell. And there was a lot of crap going on that people say, well, it wasn't rough in those days, but it was rough. Like, you could hold a guy up going into the defense. Nowadays, you can't do that. The guy can run the defenseman right through the boards. It's. I think the other rule is better. Let them hold the guy up so he doesn't hammer somebody. But yeah, I really enjoyed those years. It was fabulous. Uh, a couple of our guys challenged him, Johnny McKenzie, but it's no contest against him. And then the next time you go in the boards, he just hacks you right up. It was just like you'd figure you'd be you're lucky to come out without a leg or an arm. He was really, I mean, he was a good player, great player, and could shoot both ways. But was he ever rough and dirty? Oh, he could. You couldn't push him around, and he was 6'4", probably 230 pounds. So he was a big boy and took care of himself. But I think in those days, it was more taking care of yourself than it was somebody's going to come and protect you. Like I used to get into fights with Reggie Fleming all the time in Chicago. And I don't know why he was coming after me, but I mean, I had to fight him. He was a fighter, but I mean, I had to. I had a few fights because you just have to stand up for yourself. That's the way I felt. So I did. A lot of the incidents now are like if guys are going for the head and stuff like that. Like in our day, for years, you never wore a helmet. So guys didn't do that. And you knew that if you did go after a guy like that, you're going to get payback time. Somebody's going to get you. Whereas now the referees are stepping in, and it doesn't seem like anybody's coming to the rescue. And I think like some of the hits are just disrespectful. I think the guy's got to, I think, respect the game and respect somebody else's body. You don't want anybody walking away with a concussion that, he can't come back or something. And that seems to be happening a lot. Like our game, I thought was rough and a lot of tough guys, but it wasn't dirty. I mean, it was as clean as you can get in a hit, I guess, but it wasn't a headshot or anything like that. I think some of that headshots is on purpose, and it doesn't have to be. And of course, and then the equipment's not helping either. It's so hard, and it's like steel. Bobby Orr. Bobby Orr by leaps and bounds, I think. I mean, there was a lot of good players and a lot of talented guys, but he just had that ability. You never knew how fast he was going, and if you tried to get him, he'd be going faster. He was just really a hard guy to put a beat on. Well, I think one of the toughest guys um, that I thought to play against was Teddy Green was one of them, but the other guy played defense for Boston in those days, and it was Leo Boivin. But he was a pretty not very big guy, but he was wide, and he used to lay out some great body checks. And then of course Bill Gatsby was another one that was a good defenseman and a good body checker. So those two guys really stood out in my mind. And Teddy Green was a little dirtier, but he was rough too.
So with those other guys, when you were going in the corner, you knew this was going to hurt.
Yeah, and they would get you in mid ice too, more than they would, like, they'd use the boards, but more than anything, if you're coming down in mid ice or on the along the boards, they'd nail you. Just a solid check, not against the boards, but they're good body checkers. I'd say Howe was the nastiest. You never knew what he was going to do, and you never knew where he was coming from. And he was so big and strong, and he was quick. So you had to be careful of him all the time. Uh, there was a guy, not going back to the 6-team league, but there was a guy that was pretty nasty in Philadelphia a few years ago, Kelly. He was a guy that could really skate. he was stocky, but you had to just, if you were on the ice with him, you had to watch him all the time.
Oh, Bob Kelly?
Yeah, because he was out to nail somebody, and he could hit. But he was fast, so you had to really keep your wits about you, or he'd nail you through the boards. Always tied my left skate on first. It's just a habit, but I got into it, and I always tied my left skate on, and then my right. And I didn't wear socks in my skates. Even now outside, if I go play with the kids, I don't wear socks. I find my foot sweats better, and the skate gets tighter on my foot by sweating. So I haven't worn socks. Actually, I didn't wear socks. I think my second year or third year in Boston, Bobby Orr came, and he didn't wear socks. And I thought, maybe I should try that. So I tried it, and I just loved it. I never went back. I just played in the bare feet in my skates. It was really mind-boggling. Really, it was thrilling, but it was a little scary too, because you're going into Boston Garden was probably the worst of the lot. Maple Leaf Gardens and all the famous Chicago Stadium and I just Detroit, the Olympia there. I just can't get over the noise and the people that are so radical for their team, and that it was crazy. Like they started cheering like right from the warm up, and it never stopped. Something like the Jets now, that they're doing the same thing to fans. It's great. Like it just made you feel like, and they weren't always yelling at you. They were mostly cheering the home team. So a lot of times with so much cheering going on and so much noise, it kind of fired you up. Like it was fun. It was really nice. I remember Chicago Stadium used to have to go downstairs to the dressing room, but it was when you come on the ice and heard the people yelling so much, it just give you a shot in the back to get rolling. Well, a guy in Chicago used to go out in the back waiting for the bus, but used to go out in the back with a gun because they were a little worried that the guys would be stealing the bags or anything like that. So they'd have a guard there all the time. Because in Chicago, you'd park your car in the street, and there was always some kids around. So the kids would say, $5 to park your car. And if you didn't pay them, they slit your tires. So people had to pay them. Well, it was going to be. We thought it was going to be a good league. Like they had Hedberg, Nielsen, and that coming, and the Jets had a really good team, and it was. I thought they were going to do well. I didn't know whether they'd quite match the better teams in the NHL with the better teams of the WHA, but we had passed up the Jets simply. Anastukas was the general manager there, but we passed it up simply because they weren't giving us the money that Atlanta had offered. Winnipeg offered half of what Atlanta offered. They said, we're not going to go do that. That's ridiculous. So Billy Robinson was the general manager. So we said no. Bay said no. We're going to Atlanta. So he was kind of ticked off, but that's fine. So then it was about 5 or 6 years later, Bay said, you know what, I can't understand this. He said, I played for Billy Robinson with the Bisons. He was my coach. I've known him. I've negotiated with him for players. He said, he doesn't talk to me. He said, I can't figure that out. I said, Bays, don't you remember? What do you mean? Remember what? I said, we didn't stay in Winnipeg. We went to Atlanta. I said, that's why he's probably not talking to you. He said, oh, geez, I'll bet you that's the case. So then after that, it was, now he knew why Billy Robinson wasn't talking to him. Well, I didn't. Atlanta wanted to trade me or get rid of me, either send me down to a farm club, or go with the Cowboys, the WHL, because I was getting a little. But I was 36, 37, so they kind of felt it was time. So I took Calgary because I thought that was my best bet. It's closer to home, and then Calgary. Calgary seemed to be doing okay. They had a lot of some good hockey players. They were going to pay the same kind of money, so that's the basic reason why I went to Calgary. When I got there, I didn't really enjoy Calgary a whole lot because Joe Crozier was a coach, and him and I just never got along. And he was a Winnipeg guy too, but I don't know what. We just never got along. He'd screw me around a bit. He wouldn't play me. Then he'd maybe play me, and it was ticking me off. So I didn't enjoy the experience. I should have gone probably to the East Coast. In hindsight, but how do you know then? Yeah. I think when I left Atlanta, I knew it was over. From there, I kind of figured, nah, I think we're done. This is it, and I'm going to Calgary. So there's nowhere else to go now. I'm not going to go all summer and try and see if I can get a job somewhere. And, I had 2 kids, so that was it, was over. It was really, really a tough decision. I worked at Silverwood's Dairy for a while, and then I went into the insurance business and real estate. I worked real estate first, then I went into the insurance business, and I was there for years. I did okay, but not really great. So it was really, really a tough turnaround. It really was, and I missed the hockey, and so it was a tough adjustment for years. It was a different transition, and then every fall you miss hockey because you're supposed to be leaving for training camp, but we're not. So yeah, it was a tough transition. Well, I think one of the biggest changes is uh, the game's faster and there's bigger guys playing it. I don't know if it's better game or that. I'm not saying that. I'm not sure of that yet. But it is a faster game and bigger guys. I think there's a lot of cycling the puck. Where I think in the old days, there was more finesse passing, and I like that. I like that game better, the finesse passing, because I was sort of thought of myself as a finesse player, and now it's a lot of circling and playing on the boards and stuff like that. And I don't know. To be honest with you, I very seldom watch any games anymore. I don't. I maybe pick and choose a period here, a couple of minutes here or there, but to sit down and watch a whole game, I can't do it. I just get restless. And I know Bobby Hull said to me one time, I said, "You go to the game, Bob?" He said, "I wouldn't walk across the street to see a hockey game." He said, "Are you crazy?" So I guess a lot of guys have the same idea. I know Bill Allen, Judy said, he was retired, and Judy said, "Geez, Dad, why don't you go to some games? It'd get you out of the house, and you and Mom could have fun." Well, he flipped right out because he got really mad, but he didn't want to go to any games. He was through with it, and that was it. So we had to stand his tirade for a while till he got over it.